This podcast is a 2020 PodRoger production. Supported by Growsites. Affordable, beautiful, professional websites, customized to your specific needs. To see how you can grow your project, visit Growsites. growsit.es.
Portaloo, when Christian is a dirty word. This won't take long. The Department of Home Affairs, the potatocracy, or the potatocracy, or the potatocracy, the potatocracy, the Department of Home Affairs, the potatocracy, stirringly asserts that people love to come to Australia because Australian values are based on freedom, respect, fairness and equality of opportunity, which are central to our community remaining a secure, prosperous and peaceful place to live. Official Australian values include equality of opportunity, a fair go for all. And that's all good. We like that. If only these were actual values held and supported and practiced by actual politicians. You might hope that a guy with a Christian name like Christian might have been infected by nominative determinism, that Christian had been an aptonym that suited Christian Porter, because he might have felt at least some moral pressure to consider the needs of the meek and struggling. According to The Guardian, the Federal Attorney-General, Christian Porter, has described the Victorian government's plan to introduce paid sick and carers leave for casual and insecure workers as a business and employment-killing approach. Do you know what casuals dread the most? Christmas. Because most don't work at Christmas, New Year, and they can't afford a proper Christmas, or gifts for their children or whoever, or a holiday. And they still have to pay the rent. It's demeaning and it's embarrassing. A third of workers in Australia don't get sick leave. Victoria is looking at a scheme which would provide 5 days of paid sick leave and carers pay to some casual workers and people with insecure employment. 5 days a year, without holiday pay. You would think this was the very least they could do. Except that throughout Australia the standard government support for such people is the very least they can get away with. Aside, in our social system people are of equal value. In our political system all voters are of equal power. The power is in the people, not in the politicians. The power is the people, all the people. Importantly, power does not emanate from the politicians. The people's power does not go to the politicians. The people's power goes through the politicians. Keep this in mind when a politician is balancing the needs of all electors, of whatever status, against the interests of industry. Christian Porter is, apart from Attorney-General, the Minister for Industrial Relations. On the evidence, this apparently means that he's effectively the Minister for Industrialists. We know this is who he is because he sees a tiny attempt to help people who need help as a massive tax, as killing business. Casual work is inherently insecure. Casual work tends to be poorly paid, without penalty rates, and sometimes they're not eligible for a trickle of super. If they're job seekers, any income reduces their Centrelink payments. Sometimes casual work is the only work they can get. Yes, they get paid more to compensate for the uncertainty and the lack of benefits, but on the pay grade of most, it's an insult, and not enough to assure against the unforeseen. They can be easily trashed when they're not needed. And yet the economy depends on them and the low cost of their work. But forget about their problems. They've only got themselves to blame. They're a nuisance and they can't complain because they could lose their shitty job. And let's be blunt, they're the peons of industry. They're not nearly as valuable as the rich and powerful. If casuals cost a little bit more, business owners might have to spend hours less on the ski slopes. Businesses would collapse if casual workers were treated fairly. And according to Christian Porter, employment would collapse if workers were treated fairly and with equality as Australians, a core Australian value. And yet business depends on casual workers and the low cost of their work. Not all casual workers are well-paid miners. Most casuals are not well-paid even with their casual loading, and most are insecure. The industry's trick is that if you employ people on a casual basis, you can put them off whenever you like and bring them back when you need someone. Even if they're getting a loading, they still cost a lot less in the long run, so they're used and abused, kept down. They can't fight because there are plenty of other people who can take their job. They can't take sick days off because they're not paid for days off and they still have to pay the rent. So if they're sick, they come to work sick and pass it around. It may seem callous on the part of the companies, but they're not responsible for the casuals' problems because casuals. OK, it does seem callous, but it's good for the economy. Christian Porter's annual base salary is $357,247.50. His superannuation rate is 15.4%, while everyone else gets 9.5%, or a minimum of roughly $55,000 per year, more than most casuals earn in a year. What is it about the far right and the Christians that they fight against help for those who struggle while supporting and courting the favour of those who need no help at all? Porter Loo Too. Update. Well, how spot on is Sir Roger? He's yet again demonstrated how appropriate it is that he was granted the OGPC, Order of the Greater, as the world's first and only genuine political clairvoyant. In the previous post he noted that Christian Porter was less the Minister for Industrial Relations and more the Minister for Industrialists. Workpack sounds like an American right-wing political action committee, doesn't it? And frankly that wouldn't appear to be far from the reality. Workpack, CIMIC Group trading as Workpack, which was previously Leighton Holdings, there's a story there, is helmed by CEO Hamish Griffin. It's one of Australia's largest labour hire companies. Workpack was upset that the unions won a case in the federal court, Workpack versus Rosato, about the rights of casual labourers to things like sick leave. They'd already been upset before in 2018, Workpack Proprietary Limited versus Skeen. So now to their delight they've been granted special leave by the High Court to appeal Workpack versus Rosato. And guess who's supporting them? As Sir Roger, OGPC, foretold. Both the Attorney-General and the Minister for Industrial Relations, Christian Porter. Truly the actual Minister for Industrialists. Porter cries that the cost of decency and fairness is too many $1 billion, which seems to suggest that for the rich, important and self-congratulatory to stay rich, someone has to be poor. Workpack cries that the children will be worried by the uncertainty in a strange and unknown new future. If this pandemic has done anything, it's shown that as a country we can definitely handle uncertainty, strangeness and an unknown future. Nothing is what it seems. Here's the thing. McDonald's is not a restaurant chain. It's in the real estate business. It leases out space to restaurateurs. Coles and Woolies are not retailers. They're in the real estate business. They sell shelf space. Your phone company is not a telecommunication company. They're a billing system. When you use your smartphone or your PC, you're not the customer. You're the product. When you rent a house or a unit from a real estate agent, you're not their customer. Their customer is the landlord. You're the product, and you produce the money. And when you're a casual worker who got your job through Workpack, your employer is not the mining company. It's Workpack. You're not Workpack's customer. Workpack's customer is the mining company, your Workpack's product. You and your work is sold to the mining company. When another company is the customer, that's where a supplier's responsibility and interest is focused. The lower the cost to a customer, the happier the customer will be. The more customers will be attracted and the more customers will be retained. And of course, not to forget that the real customers and the real bosses of a company's board are the shareholders, who will tend to be either massive superannuation companies or the already very rich, and they have no responsibility for the actual employees. So the system is already skewed towards industry and away from the workers. How do we know this? Just a guess? Maybe because CEO salaries and politician salaries keep going up. As Tony Abbott liked to say, up and up and up, prices are up, higher and juicily higher, while middle-class incomes have been stagnant for years. According to the ABS via the ABC in 2019, it's official, the rich are getting richer. Well-off Australians are pulling away from the rest of the nation, with inequality of wealth rising in recent years. New figures from the Australian Bureau of Statistics show. The figures show income growth has been virtually non-existent for many. Average household incomes have stagnated, with virtually no growth since 2013. So it's good to be able to see real commercial Australian values in operation, to see the ancient engines creaking, to look behind the painted curtains, to shatter the hall of mirrors and realise they're taking the piss.
This podcast is a 2020 PodRoger production, supported by Growsites. Affordable, beautiful, professional websites, customized to your specific needs. To see how you can grow your project, visit Growsites. Growsite.es